Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Monday, July 29th. We'll be taking a look at tonight's 8 game. Maybe it's probably 7 game, but it's an 8-game MLB slate on DraftKings. So hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. Give me those thummy thumbs. You know how much I like those. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to always know when we go live. Join me since it's a Monday. It's James McCool. Mondays with McCool. James McCool, the co-author with me on the theory of daily fantasy sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass as well as an advanced player's guide with the custom Excel tools. All of that you could find at theoryofdfs.com. And we got an 8-game slate set. Maybe we're going to treat this as if the Cubs and Reds game plays. Okay, if we look at the weather report, you could always do that on RotoGrinders for free. The weather report, rotogrinders.com/weather/MLB. Obviously, you should tune in later to Crunch Time at 6:20 p.m. Roth always hosts that show, it puts the weather radar, gives the updates, gives his takes on does it play, does it not play, late start, the chances that it gets postponed, that type of stuff. So tune in later. But we're going to treat the Cubs and Reds as if they're playing as of now. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. But we do have some offenses. We have a bunch of we don't have the lowest of totals. So James, let's start. This is kind of weird. From last week, it was kind of a lot of slates were like there are really like 2 or 3 clear hitting spots, and then a whole bunch of pitchers that we wanted to play. I think today is like the opposite, where I think like more than half the stacks are in play today, and there aren't many pitchers I really want to play. So other than ownership, James, the bat currently hasn't projected for like 50% ownership. Can you think of any reason not to play Paul Skeens today at 10-5 against the Astros?
No, not really. I mean, he's far and away the highest projected median on the slate for the models over at Pater. He's pretty high up there for RotoGrinders as well. Pretty much across the industry, he's got a 3 or 4 fantasy point lead over nearly everyone else on the slate. It's going to be hard to match that from median expectation. And I have not ran any sims yet, any contest sims, but I would imagine that even at 50% owned, he's probably under-owned. I think he will be more than 50% owned. I think he'll be somewhere in the 60% range, but I can't think of any reason to fade that. You just, outside of like the largest fields, there's a $5 lotto going on today. Maybe in some of your portfolio, you don't have him, but I mean, like, it's not like you're going to attack him. So I don't know. I don't see a reason not to play him.
And also, we're getting to the time of year, we're close to the trade deadline. We have some injuries, people getting called up from the minors that, outside of a couple of teams, most stacks are affordable, right? There's always going to be 1 or 2 people in everyone's lineup that makes it cheap enough that you could stack, at least 3 good players from a team and still get the stack in. So I don't think price is going to be an issue. If you don't play Skeens, obviously DraftKings, you're playing 2 pitchers. FanDuel, much easier to just 1 pitcher. You're probably playing 1 of maybe 2 or 3 pitchers, and that's it. But a second pitcher, although he did get shelled at Coors his last start, Nick Pivetta against Seattle at 8,500 actually has a higher strikeout prop than Paul Skeens. And the primary difference is that the Astros really aren't a high strikeout team at all, while the Mariners are. So Nick Pivetta, I mean, we see in the bat here right on the screen. And obviously, you get the bat here at RotoGrinders, special premium add-on. I mean, Paul Skeens' mean projection, 21.5. Nick Pivetta, 18.5. Then we have Logan Gilbert at 15. Eovaldi at 14.4. So you see, these are dramatic drops. I even checked SimLabs, and obviously, it's 8 hours before slate time. So, ownership changes, lineup changes, everything. So don't look at SimLabs here at RotoGrinders until closer to the slate time. But SimLabs has Paul Skeens still as the most under-owned pitcher on the slate when it comes to leverage. But Pivetta ain't far behind. It's not that hard to just make Skeens Pivetta lineups. Let's take a look at all the pitchers that are in that bucket. Skeens, Pivetta, Gilbert, Eovaldi.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't mind playing Logan Gilbert at 9,600 if he's going to be like 15% owned, or Eovaldi at 9,300 if he's going to be around the same ownership. But like, if Pivetta is going to be 30% owned, he's like 1,000 cheaper than both of those guys, and 3 to 4 points higher projected. Dude, I mean, if I had 20 lineups, I wouldn't think it's nuts. I wouldn't be crazy to just lock in Pivetta and Skeens into all 20 lineups and just, what stacks do I want to play and be done with it? Although you have to realize that's going to be the nut combination of pitchers. Right? But like, outside of the four that I mentioned, this is kind of a little bit of a gross slate.
I don't know. I think slates like this aren't bad. I ran some contests, and again, like Blender said, it is 8 hours before the slate. Nothing has materialized yet. But when I run things, Paul Skeens shows up in 90% of winning lineups. So I don't think he can possibly be overowned on this slate based on ownership and based on projection and everything like that. So
how about the second pitcher, though? I mean, I'm assuming the other.
Right, yeah, I'm getting to it. So Pivetta is fine, but I don't have him projected. I don't have him projected as well as the bat does. I have him clumped in with a lot of the other guys. So it's kind of hard for me to accept eating 35% ownership on him as an SP2 if I'm playing something that is larger field. In smaller fields, in the 250, 777, stuff like that, yeah, you just start with Pivetta Skeens and then you just go with the stack, because the stacks, you can just play any stack really. But in larger fields, I think that it's a question. We have Alec Marsh, we have Colin Ray. Colin Ray is especially cheap at 6,900 and I think makes for a pretty good SP2 option. But if you're not playing Pivetta, everybody else pretty much projects the same. So you just play whoever else.
So you have Colin Ray and Alec Marsh projected similarly to Gilbert and Eovaldi and Pivetta?
I mean, all those guys project between 12 and 16 fantasy points.
Well, there's a difference. That's a 4-point difference. That's significant enough.
No, it's not.
I mean, the bat says the same, but the bat says the same thing. I mean, outside of Pivetta, obviously the bat has him at 18.5, but like Gilbert 15, Eovaldi 14.5, Colin Ray 12.5, Alec Marsh 12.8. Basically, like Gilbert and Eovaldi project like for raw points better, but point per dollar for their salary, not so much. And then if you're playing them with Paul Skeens, like a 10.5K pitcher plus paying 20K for pitching today is going to inhibit some of your hitting options. You may not be able to, play some of the more expensive players on certain teams. I mean, like the Royals, like you're not going to be able to get like 2, 3, 4, 5, that type of stack in. So I can understand you saying that, okay, well, Colin Ray, Alec Marsh. Obviously, Alec Marsh is facing the White Sox, so it's always a good matchup. Ray against Atlanta. Atlanta ain't that scary of a matchup as they used to be.
Right.
I could see. I mean, you could get away with these guys. Of course,
so
they're going to be owned also 10-ish%. So, like, I'm on board with that. But, I mean, I just take a look.
Here's my breakdown of projections on these guys. I have Colin Ray at 16. I have Nick Pivetta at 16. I have Alec Marsh at 15.6. I have Logan Gilbert at 14.7. So I have him lower. So based on that, I much prefer Colin Ray at 6,900. But again, in small fields, I don't have a reason to get away from Skeens and Pivetta. Like it's important, and we talk about this in Theory DFS, and I cite it all the time. You need to be building for the contest that you're playing. Like I really, really like the combo of Skeens and Ray for larger fields for not only the fact that Ray is cheaper and I have him projected as slightly better, but also because I only have him projected for 12% ownership in large fields. And like that's a nice discount. And then I can end up eating chalk at bats if I want to. But I mean, obviously we'll get to that later. I don't know if I have any reason to eat chalk at bats. So I just think that when you look at pitching on this slate, it's that there are a bevy of options that look fine, and it doesn't seem like there's any reason in larger fields to eat ownership. Fine, right? I mean,
where they're fine, right? Quote unquote.
Right.
Because like Brett McNeil in chat is mentioning Woods Richardson, and I just don't play that guy. 6,700 against the Mets in Citi Field. He's can he get you 10 points? I mean, I just take, when it comes to GPPs, I always side with two things: pitch count and strikeout upside. And which Richardson is like, gets you neither of those. Yeah. Like, yeah, sure, run prevention, plays 5 innings, gives up 3 runs and 3 strikeouts. I mean, like, yeah, if he puts up a 30 point, I mean, when does he put up 30 points? Like, he doesn't. So I just scratch him off. I mean, like, those types of pitchers, I just don't play. Right? You know, you're not going to find me playing those types. Everything else has to go wrong on the slate. Right? Paul Skeens has to get blown up for like Woods Richardson to be like one of the optimal lineups. But let's talk about the 4K pitcher, Grant Holmes against Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you're going to need him. I mean, like even if you're playing Paul Skeens plus Holmes, and then you pay up for everyone, I don't think you need to pay up for everyone at your hitting spots. But I mean, this guy, sure, he has strikeouts, but like he's been pitching out of the bullpen, right? I mean, 3 innings pitched, 3 innings pitched, 3 innings pitched, 2 innings pitched, 2 innings pitched, 3 innings. I mean, bat as the pitch count at 68. And at Milwaukee ain't like, yeah, you have some strikeouts there, but not like, I mean, it's going to be hard for him to get the win unless he's really efficient to go 5 innings. And if he gets hit at all, you're dead. I mean, just like he's not getting 7, 8 strikeouts in 4 innings, right? Probably. So if he gives up 1 or 2 runs, I mean, you're not looking at a score that's over double digits. So I could see people trying for that, right? I mean, I don't think his ownership is going to be high, but I think I'd much rather take a shot on like someone like Colin Ray or even Jake Bloss against Pittsburgh at 6,600, which is, well, that's almost like that's 2,500, 3,000 more. Like, yeah, you're going to have to sacrifice like one decent bat in your lineup. But I think once we go to stacks and we rank them on tiers, we're going to have one of these days where we're going to want to put like every team in like right in the middle. Like I seriously think you could play 2/3 of the stacks today. Mm-hmm. Truthfully, it's quite possible you could play that there may not be an F tier stack on the entire list. And truthfully, there may not even be an A tier stack. Like it may be one of those days where everyone's in the middle, which means you have so many options at bats. I don't think the 2,000 for hitting is going to matter that much. So yeah, truthfully, I'm not playing Grant Holmes today at 4K, even if it means that I get like a one-off Bobby Witt or something like that. But I don't think you necessarily need to build that way.
No, and he doesn't. I said this yesterday in the Discord, and I think it's a really important point to make. Like when you take on leverage, you want the leverage to be able to win you the slate. And Grant Holmes offers a lot of leverage at low ownership. And probably a lot of leverage in the way that you can build, but his ceiling is like 16
points. It's not even 16.
16 is relatively high. I mean, if he's projected with a mean of 9, like his ceiling is more than 10. If you want to say like 14, whatever. Right. But like his ceiling is he strikes out the side twice, goes 3.2 innings pitched or whatever, and doesn't allow any runs. And that's probably, unless every other offense goes nuts, or like unless your offense goes nuts, you just don't need that much value. So I'm not going to play Grant Holmes. I like Jake Bloss. I think that's an interesting play. Another guy that I think is kind of interesting is Mitchell Parker. I wouldn't get there, I don't think. But like there's other plays you can make. You don't have to go Grant Holmes. So the reason why I say Mitchell Parker, it's not necessarily a projection thing. I do not have him projected well. I have him projected for 10 fantasy points. But I wrote him up today in the breadcrumbs in the newsletter because I think that he's interesting. There's an interesting pitch mix there, and I think he has upside. But from a projection standpoint, projects terribly. So more of an intuition thing.
Let's talk about stacks now. Looking at the bat stacks page, we got, obviously it's an 8-game slate, probably a 7-game slate. We're still treating the Reds and the Cubs as if they're playing. Okay, so as of 6:30 comes around, this list may be completely off. You're probably not playing pitchers in that game anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Hitters, yes, but pitchers, no. So the bat stacks page has the highest 5-man bat, like 5-man average on a team on DraftKings at 38.6 and the lowest at 29. Okay. Most of it is in the middle. I mean, like the lowest is 29, but I mean, the second lowest is like almost 33. So it's like 33 to 38. There's 5 points that is the range between the top team on the slate and the 15th team on the slate. So that's what we mean by, you can play a lot of bats today. I think some may be slightly overowned than others, but I don't think anything is going to get absurdly out of whack hitting-wise. So let's go through this now. The top projected stack in the bat. Kansas City Royals against Chris Flexen. I think they're going to be slightly overowned because truthfully, before we talk about the Royals, we got the Reds and the Cubs. They're number 2 and number 3. This game may not play, right? This may turn out you don't even know, right? We're going to treat them as if they're playing. So this doesn't include like the risk of them not. It's a 7:10 p.m. start. So we'll know this. You will know this, right? If they go, if Roth is like, yeah, if they don't start on time, this game is dead. That means you're just Xing these teams out. Okay, so you're just not playing them at all. It's a 7:10 game. That whatever. But to me, that's my favorite hitting game on the entire slate. I think the Cubs are an A-tier team. I think the Reds are an A-tier team today. Like both those teams. And the Royals are going to be a bit overowned in comparison. And I'm putting the Royals in the B tier. And I think if this game does not play, the Cubs-Reds game does not play, I think even more ownership goes towards the Royals and the Diamondbacks. So this is the way that we hedge for if the game plays and the game doesn't play, that I think the top 4 teams on the entire slate are the Cubs, the Reds, the Royals, and the Diamondbacks. That's what the bat would say. And you're more than free to just, if this game doesn't play, just take away this A tier altogether. And then you got the Royals and the Diamondbacks as the top teams. Are you in somewhat agreement of my assessment of these top teams?
Not on the Cubs. Not sure where the love on the Cubs comes from.
They're cheap. They're facing Carson Spears.
Carson Spears isn't terrible. Carson Spears is like, why is Carson Spears terrible?
I don't know. He doesn't project very well.
Okay. Carson Spears isn't terrible. He's legitimately not bad. Like he's been okay this year.
He projects for 3.5 strikeouts and 72 pitch count and 8 points median. The worst on the entire slate. Okay. According to the bat.
Right. According to the bat. 4.2 xFIP, 7.85K per 9, 1.72 walk per 9. Pretty decent.
What's the sample size of this stuff, Jay? I mean,
yeah. But based on, okay, sure. So if what you want to say is that he projects badly because of his minor league outcomes that are baked into what his major league projection should be, I, at this point, and he does not have a full year, obviously, of major league playing time, but based on the 47 innings pitched that he's pitched so far in the majors this year, he's been good. In 2023, he had walk rate issues, which is where most of his problems came from. But like, this is a middle rotation arm. This is not somebody that I would be just like attacking just because. If he
I'm
projects
attacking just because. I am doing so just because, James.
No, you're doing it because of the projections. I get it. I totally understand, but that's where my disagreement comes from. I don't think that Carson Spears is bad. In fact, I think that he has been a target 3 times this year, and he has only been attackable once. And I'm not even sure that the team won the GPP that day. I think that it was Pittsburgh. No, he destroyed Pittsburgh. And then there was another slate where I had Carson Spears projected for 14 fantasy points, and you wanted to attack him. I was like, we shouldn't do that. And then he did well. I don't think he's bad. So I disagree on the Cubs. I say B tier for the Cubs.
So you'd rather play the Reds against Tyon?
Yeah, because I think the Reds have more event upside than the Cubs by a pretty significant long shot. Like the Reds can get there in ways that are not scoring runs. Like LA can steal 4 bases. All of them have stolen base upside, and most of them have power. Like I think that the Reds can get there in ways that are not relied to scoring runs. Whereas the Cubs, if the Cubs don't score 9 runs, then they're not doing anything on the slate.
So how about the Royals and the Diamondbacks?
Royals,
obviously, you gotta hate the Diamondbacks. Your boy Mitchell Parker is facing them, and Mitchell Parker is obviously a future Cy Young candidate. To you.
No, I don't think he's a future Cy Young winner. I think that he is okay. I think he's pretty good. Maybe. Is Kansas City at home or away?
Kansas City is away at the White Sox. That's
an issue. They're considerably worse on the road.
Well, they have 5 implied. These 2 teams, the Royals and the Diamondbacks, have the highest implied run totals at over 5.
I get it. We are here for a discussion. I think Kansas City is probably. I'm good with them being an A tier if there's no Cubs or Reds on the slate. But I do think that we do have to pay attention. Like they have considerably worse splits away. Bobby Witt specifically is considerably worse. I think that I put up a graphic that showed they have like a 42-point drop in runs created plus on the road. So I don't really like the Royals all that much either. And they're going to be super highly owned. They're going to be by far the highest owned team. So I think based on ownership alone, they need to be B tier. Like I prefer C tier. Diamondbacks
C tier
for Kansas City, I prefer C tier. Yeah. I just think they're not the same team on the road. Arizona, I'm fine with. Even though I do think that Mitchell Parker has upside, like I think that from an evaluation standpoint, he's got some cool tools that are interesting. Arizona still projects really well for me, and it's not like Washington's bullpen is good. So I don't think Parker's there yet. I think he'll be there next year or maybe the year after. But yeah, Arizona I think is fine. B tier.
Okay, these teams all project about the same. Literally, like within like 0.4 of a point of each other. Okay, these 5-man stacks. Okay, we got the Brewers against Holmes, the Mets against Richardson, the Braves against Colin Ray, the Rangers against Palante, and the Red Sox against Logan Gilbert. They all project about the same. Now, the pricing much different than each other. Some teams are much more expensive than others. So let's go through these, James. Where are we putting the Brewers, the Mets, the Braves, the Rangers, the Red Sox?
Brewers, I at least C, preferably D. That's a hard spot.
You said whoa. At least D, at least C. But
yeah, like I'm fine with either C or D. I prefer D.
Okay, well, I prefer C against Grant Holmes.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Mets, I like the Mets. I think that's a good spot. I think that Simeon Woods Richardson is the guy who's most home run prone on this slate. In terms of just where he's at and the regression I think is coming. So I like the Mets B tier. Can we go B?
You know how expensive? I mean, yeah. Who you playing a pitcher if you're playing the Mets today?
Colin Ray.
Okay, you're gonna do it that? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think the Mets are a B tier team because
okay,
of price.
We can go see. That's fine.
Tier. Right.
Yeah, we can go see.
Just due to price. I think they're like the most expensive stack on the slate.
Are you going to say the same thing about Boston?
Oh, I would say it's very similar. Boston against Logan Gilbert, like good luck to you. I'm putting them on the D tier. I don't think you're crazy for doing it, but I'm not. D is kind of my tier of you're not crazy, but I ain't playing it in my 3 lines. Like that's the F is like you're crazy. D is you're not crazy, but I ain't doing it, right? And C is kind of like, okay, that's the bottom of the pack, and like A and B are like my main stack. So like Boston Red Sox, you are not crazy for playing, but I ain't doing it because like Logan Gilbert, it would be different if Logan Gilbert was actually going to be owned today, but he's going to only be like 15% owned. It's like I'd much rather play Gilbert as a pitching pivot than the Red Sox today at their pricing against him. Yeah, because Gilbert's not a bad pitcher, so like they're the D tier to me.
If it weren't for Boston being expensive, I would want them C tier. But you're paying a lot for them, and they don't. You're right; they don't offer any leverage, and like they are going to be low owned as well, right? So like,
right,
it's I have them projected well. They have been arguably the best offense in the league over the last probably 5, 6, 10. 15 games, so they've been really, really good. They're trending in the right way, but yeah, too expensive. So I'm fine with them in the D tier there.
Right. I mean, the Rangers are kind of a similar boat, also. I mean, I don't mind facing Andre Palante, but the Rangers kind of expensive as well. Like
they haven't been near as good. So I'd prefer Rangers in D tier. I'm not there. I would not play the Rangers today.
Okay. I'm in the similar boat of like, I think it's fine to play the Rangers. I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. I am fine, though. I think we'll be a disagreement here. I am fine with playing the Braves against Colin Ray, even though you're probably playing Ray more than the Braves. But
I'm fine with either side of it. I like Ray projects fine, but it's not like he projects for 20. Like
right. But the Braves, especially with the guys out of their lineup, the Braves are so much cheaper now than they've ever been. Yeah. So
you price alone,
right? Okay, let's get to the next bucket. Let's get to these two because these are like the next bucket. Like all these teams outside of the last team kind of project the same, but the top of this bucket, number 1, is the Cardinals against Eovaldi. I think the Cardinals against Eovaldi is very similar to the Red Sox against Gilbert. Eovaldi isn't bad. I probably don't want to stack against him. St. Louis is not as cheap as St. Louis used to be the cheapest team on the slate. Now they're not. Right. So the Cardinals, I'm putting on the D tier of you're not crazy for playing them. I'm not. But the Seattle Mariners against Nick Pivetta, I'm putting in the C tier. Because I would absolutely consider playing the Mariners today, even in one of my 3 lineups, because Pivetta is going to be the second highest owned pitcher. And if any pitcher is going to give up multiple home runs while striking out 9, it's going to be him. So if I'm playing your type of Skeens Raya lineup, I don't think the Mariners are in the. You're not crazy for playing them, but I'm not. I think you're not crazy for playing them. The C tier is you're not crazy for playing them, but I am. Right. So like they're C tier team today.
Yeah, and Seattle's been good lately. I agree with St. Louis. I am not super into attacking Eovaldi. I'm also not super into using Eovaldi against St. Louis. Seattle, I'm inclined. I wrote on Pivetta in the breadcrumbs and think that So it was kind of broadcasted that he was going to get blown up in Coors. He was the most home run pitcher on the slate going in. He had like a 3% home run per fly ball rate with a 28% ground ball rate. Like, you're going to get blown up in Coors with that. But now moving into this start, he looks considerably better from that perspective. And now it's his BABIP and his left on base rates that are just out of whack. So I think he's got some better days coming. Strikeout rate has stayed elite. He's always been really, really good in terms of strikeout rate. And again, in small fields, I don't see a reason to get away from Pivetta. But in large fields, Seattle, similar to how good Boston has been, Seattle has been terrific over the last 2 weeks or whatever. So their trending stuff is really, really looking good. And you get a lot of leverage on the field. There's reason to think that Pivetta is going to end up 40% owned. And if Pivetta's 40% owned, I almost want to put Seattle in the B tier because of the leverage they have. That's a lot of leverage for a team.
I'm fine with that. No, I think the Mariners are the best leverage stack on the entire slate.
I agree.
Right? Because on the other side, I'll wait. Instead of getting to the bottom, since we're already talking about leverage, Paul Skeens is going to be 1,000,000% owned, but I still put the Astros on the F tier.
Yeah, what
the Astros project 3 points lower than any other team on the slate. And I want to reiterate the fact that, you'll go look back at past shows and be like, any pitcher that's going to be 50+% owned is always a stuff to stack at. How often does Paul Skeens not only get blown up, but blown up to the fact where the Astros are the top stack on the entire slate when we have all these other spots that are good, right? It's not a slate where all the pitchers are great. Can you play a one-off Astros bet? Sure, yeah, okay, you could do that. These tiers are for stacks, not for individual hitters. But I'd much rather play the Mariners against Pivetta than the Astros against Skeens, because it's not like the Astros are cheap. You're paying for the prices of the Mets or the Royals. You're paying more than the Royals, more than the Reds, more than the Red Sox for the Astros against Paul Skeens. No thanks.
Yeah, here's the thing with Paul Skeens. The only thing that you can point to with Paul Skeens is that he has 95% left on base rate. That's not going to stick, right? That will come down. But he lets 3 people on base a game. So the worst case scenario, literally the worst case scenario I can think of, is he magically lets 3 people on base in the same inning and gives up a grand slam. And then you know what stat line he ends up with? He ends up with 10 strikeouts, 4 earned runs, 3 hits, a walk, and 13 fantasy points. And the Astros score 5 runs total.
Right.
That's the worst case scenario against Skeens. You just have to treat Skeens like DeGrom. There was no reason when DeGrom was in his prime 2.5 years ago. He was hitting 70% owned at 11K, and you didn't even think about stacking against him. You didn't even consider it. No. Same thing with Skeens. There's just no reason to attack him. The upside is a mediocre outcome for every other team. So right. I have no reason.
No, I agree with you. Okay, so let's bang out these last teams. The Twins against Quintana, the White Sox against Marsh, the Pirates against Bloss, the Nationals against Montgomery. I personally wouldn't put any of these on the C tier. I'm just not sure. To me, by default, I'll put mine, and we'll move it based on what you think.
Okay.
The Twins, I'm just putting them all on D tier. The Twins, the White Sox, the Pirates, and the Nationals. They by default, they're in my category of you could play them, but I'm probably not.
Okay. So I will disagree on Minnesota and Pittsburgh. I think they should be at least C tier.
Well, the Twins are expensive, James. They're two different. The Pirates and the Twins, both in the back. All these teams project about the same.
Yes,
but the Pirates are much cheaper than the Twins, so I'm much more inclined to. I'll give you putting the Pirates in the C tier. I consider playing the Pirates.
Yeah.
But the Twins at these prices, I mean, why might as well just play the Mets then?
You could play the Mets.
Okay.
I think that, yeah. But I also think that the Twins deserve to be in at least C tier. Quintana is the pitcher that I think has the most regression coming. Has been outpacing his stats the most. We know that he's not a good pitcher. He has, over the last 20 innings pitched, he has a 100% left on base rate. 100%.
You mean that's not sustainable, James?
What?
That's 100% left on base rate is not sustainable.
No. No, clearly not. It's the same thing.
Maybe he has magic powers, James.
Nope,
we don't know that. Maybe it's like
the same concept
witchcraft or something. Are you accounting for the fact that he could be a witch?
No, he just has the best BVP of any pitcher on the slate. No, look, so it's the same thing with Skeens. However, whereas Skeens only lets on like 3 people per game, that's not Quintana's thing. Quintana has a bad walk rate and doesn't have the same like BABIP luck. He doesn't have the same strikeout rates. He can let 6, 7, 8 people on base in a start. And when those left on base rates come down, they don't come down incrementally. That's not how regression works. They come down in chunks. So especially with how strong the Twins offense has been, and against a pitcher that I think has the most regression coming, while you could play the Mets, or you could play Kansas City, or you could play Atlanta, I also think that you could play the Twins. Those guys all project around the same for me. So I'm not pushing for the Twins to be an A-tier team because I think they are expensive and there's cost to that. C-tier makes a lot of sense for them, I think.
So you're saying that tonight, if the Twins don't do well and Quintana gets out of trouble all the time, that Jose Quintana is indeed a witch.
Yeah.
So we have to get him and throw him in water, right, and see if he floats around. Whatever they did in those, we have to do witch trials for Jose Quintana.
Jose Quintana is going to turn them into a newt, and then they'll get better. But he's going to turn them into. That's from Monty Python, in case viewers do not know. But yeah, I think Twins are a good stack. Like you said, there's a lot of stacks you can consider. You can kind of do just whatever you really feel like doing today. But that's where you really need to be reticent of and take into account the contest that you're playing for. You probably shouldn't play the Twins in small field. That's probably not what you should do. But in large field, I think they're a really good stack. You probably should play Kansas City in small field. In larger fields, I think they're going to be overowned. So just think about things that way. Today is much more about the ownership of the things that you are buying rather than the actual cost and projection of what you're buying, because most of the things are just projecting out around the same.
Right. And I think I'm much more inclined, obviously. We're treating this as the Reds-Cubs game is playing.
Right.
But if the Cubs and Reds game does not play, I believe that most of that ownership goes towards the Royals and the Diamondbacks, which means that I'm much more inclined to take a shot on the Pirates, the Mariners, my 3 lineups may be like if this game plays, I think the ownership on the Diamondbacks and the Royals are going to be a little overowned, and I'm willing to still eat that with, in the proper lineup. If I'm playing the Mariners in a lineup, I don't give a crap about ownership anymore, right? But the thing is that if the game doesn't play, we see ownership doesn't spread out equally. It spreads out in kind of an exponential manner where the next best spot gets overowned and everyone else kind of remains kind of equally the same. Like, it's not like the type of thing where the Reds-Cubs game gets postponed and the Cardinals now get a little extra ownership. Like, the Cardinals ownership is going to be the same as it ever was, right? The Nationals ownership is going to be the same as it ever was. It's just that on the top, the Brewers will go up a bunch. The Royals will go up a bunch. The Diamondbacks will go up a bunch, right? It'll kind of concentrate on the next best spots. So I'm less inclined to play those next best spots if that game doesn't play, especially when the bat projects. The difference between the Royals and the Nationals in the bat is about 5.5 fantasy points, right? That's it. For the whole stack, not just one player, just the whole. That's an average per player of 1 point. right? Right. It's a 5-man stack, 5.5 point difference. So it's like barely over a point.
Right.
So don't be so tied to like, well, the Reds Cubs game is gone. I guess I'm just playing a ton of Royals, a ton of Diamondbacks, and I have the 5 implied run total. Like, no, I'm much more inclined to have a very small pitching pool. And if I have 20 lineups, I'd be playing half the stacks on the slate.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're nuts for if you're playing 2 or 3 lineups. Picking the 2 or 3 spots you personally like the best, and take it from there. Play Skeens, play Pavetta, play Colin Ray if you want to play a cheap guy. He still projects fine. I don't know if that's necessary. You could always throw in Gilbert or Evaldi if you want to be a little bit different from Pavetta. But I think that's kind of what you're doing today. And I wouldn't be shocked if one of 12 teams on the slate one of them puts up 10 runs.
Yep.
And it could be any. It could be the Rangers today for all we know. It could be the Mariners. It could be so many of these teams. I just don't think it's the Astros.
Yep. I'm in complete agreement. I think that the small field nuts is probably something like Skeens, Gilbert, Reds, or Royals, Mariners. It's probably the small field nuts. And then like if you don't want to play any of those guys, you can play pretty much whoever. I have 5 total teams. You know how I do things over a pair with 8+ run percentages? I have 5 total teams that have less than a 15% chance to score 8+ runs. It's completely wide open. Nobody over 25%. So it's Jordan, this is your favorite kind of slate. Let's play whoever you want.
It's always it doesn't matter. Every slate is play what you want.
Yeah, but this is the personification of it. I mean, this is literally outside of Skeens, the world is absolutely your oyster.
Right. So I just go by ownership. So that's why I checked that out later. Check out the updated ownership that we have for RotoGrinders premium members, as well as SimLabs, our simulation product that we run, 100,000 contest simulations and spit out lineups that based on your specifications should be profitable long-term, long-term plus EV in your GPPs, depending on contest size. So I use that. I look at that as a research tool. So if you want to be a RotoGrinders premium member, look at that link in the description. We're giving you $40 off your first month. So check it out. And then James, people should sign up for your newsletter, which is free. Comes out every day, the breadcrumbs at paydirtdfs.com, right?
Yep, paydirtdfs.com. Get on the breadcrumbs. Been a really nice outlet, I think. Obviously, I'll have NFL pricing out here pretty soon for the site as well. I don't think that I'm going to have too many new additions this year. So, tried and trusty tools. Jordan, we do have some housekeeping to maintain from last week. First off,
we don't mention that Snell came in at 18.1% ownership and he won by 0.1%. And I sent you my $100. We're done.
What I think that we need to say is that my line was incredible at 18%.
18 was good, Ed. If I push for that 18.5, like if we just made it then.
You took the wrong line, dude.
Right. I got beat by the hook. Right. 17.5, 18.5, whatever. We just did 18.
Yeah. Just got caught on it. The other main important thing, the Giants won a slate.
Oh, they did?
I mean, they won a slate. Yeah. They put up like 12 runs or something with like 5 home runs.
What slate was that? Was I sleeping? What slate was that?
It was sometime last week. One of my subs won with it. He took down 250 with it.
Was that over the weekend? What happened? I don't remember that.
Yeah. Hold on. Maybe I can go.
Don't even bother. I want to forget like it never happened. Right? Because TJ is going to come on and produce and still say that the Giants never won a slate. We're just going to act like he's not crazy. I'm assuming the Giants have won slates before.
They have. Well, I think they have literally won 2 slates this year, and I will continue to. That is a rounding error to me, and we will continue to say that they don't win slates.
Well, if you want to win slates, join us here every day this week, right? I mean, I'm doing MLB stuff until NFL comes back. We got MMA on Fridays. Tomorrow, Alex Santi will be on. We'll be talking about the Tuesday slate. We'll probably have early grinders live at some point this week. Probably me and Dean. All the stuff that you could get here. 5:00 Eastern tonight. Grinders live. They'll break down the slate in much more detail. Then right after that is crunch time. Definitely tune into that because you'll need that weather update with Roth about the Reds Cubs game. So hit that subscribe button. You'll always know. You'll always know about all the shows. You'll see the thumbnails in your feed. Hit the notification bell, and you'll always know when we go live here, right? And hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Give me those thummy thumbs. If you want to learn more about the game theory of daily fantasy sports, go to theoryofdfs.com and purchase James and I's courses. And other than that, I will see you tomorrow, as I always do, Monday through Friday, 11:00 Eastern. Talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props and pick 'em on RotoGrinders Today.